The name is Animat. From time to time, I get people requesting me some wild cartoons for me to review. But this one, I'd say it's a good contender among the craziest. You see, I was asked to look into a Canadian show called Detentionaire. You'd think I know it as a Canadian myself, but that was honestly the first time I've heard about it. I didn't know what to expect, but I didn't think I'd go down a rabbit hole quite like this. I suggest to brace yourself, because talking about this show will be quite a show in itself.
Let's jump back a little to 2011, a time when both the US and Canada already had a large supply of animated shows about teenagers, unusual school life, or even both. 16, Symbionic Titan, Class of 3000, Class of the Titans, Clone High. It was almost like a whole genre in itself. Detentionaire was a late bloomer in that category, coming straight out of the minds of Daniel Bryan Franklin and Charles Johnston, who wanted to make a show based on their school life that featured a lot of cultural diversity where they all try to deal with the rules. And when they turned that experience into an animated television series, it turned out to be a pretty solid hit. At least enough to have the show running throughout the first half of the decade with 4 seasons and more than 50 episodes. And not only did it have its time to shine in Canada, but it was also featured in Australia and later in the UK and in the US on digital. Sure, it's no total drama, but still quite an impressive feat for a Canadian cartoon.
Hey. Looks like someone's got friends in high places, yo!
I just want to go and state this right now because I know there is that mindset that if you are from the same place as the thing that people are talking about, then people will go and immediately assume that you know about that thing more than the others do. But like I said before, despite the fact that I am Canadian myself, I have never heard about Detentionaire before I was asked to go and review this. Now, just to give you a little bit of a context, I actually used to watch a lot of Teletoon actually, back when I was a kid, or especially when I was a kid. However, like most people, as I grew older and a lot of my favorite shows were no longer on the air or they stopped making new episodes, I pretty much decided to just move on. And funny enough, it was actually around the time that I started high school, like around the late 2000s decade, I would say. So, in short, Detentionaire was honestly way past my time, or at least the time when I was regularly watching Teletoon. But, then again, it's never too late to go back to the old channel and just catch up with some of the new stuff they offered, right? So, now with all that said, what is it about this school in particular that stands out from all the other Toon schools?
In this school, named Enigma High, 10th grader Li Ping slowly discovers the Academy's biggest secret. One that the more he dives deeper into, the more it turns out to be something that could change the world as we know it. And as the mystery grows bigger with every episode, the more Lee requires backup from his friends and his schoolmates to help him get through secret passages and fight dangerous robots while trying to figure out the big role he plays in all of this. While most of the shows go by episode with small plot lines that get resolved in one go, the main driving force of the series is this one major narrative of the school's mystery, where each episode only gives the audience one small step forward to understanding what this could ultimately lead to. One that goes deep into the realm of complex science and even some supernatural magic. And because it continuously grows the stakes and the size of the secret, it makes the series increasingly engaging as the episodes pass by. By the time you went through a few dozen episodes, there's no real point of stopping there because you might as well go for the ride and see what is it that they're building up to. That, and they do supply a good amount of action to keep the entertainment going with intense chase scenes and fighting robots with crystallizing blasters.
You're half metal!
Here you go, princesses!
However, the mystery and Lee don't get all the attention. From time to time, the series shifts its focus to some of the other characters in more down-to-earth high school situations to give them more attention and provide them with character development, along with supplying some humor. With how big the main aspect is and the way it interests its viewers with its out-of-this-world concept, the side plots are really pale in comparison. And considering how the humor is a real give-or-take situation where they either work or fall flat, they can often feel more like filler instead of helping the series out by supplying some legitimate substance. Yes, I know it is important to maintain the high school element of this high school series, but it's so easy to get invested in the big mystery that anything that's not connected feels like it's just in the way of the good parts.
Yeah, and it stinks. And you're done.
But there is one major catch about this show that I have yet to talk about. Yes, this series is very interesting, and it's got a lot of really cool ideas regarding the secret that it's trying to hide and that it would eventually go and slowly unravel. Those parts are really made it worth watching. But it takes way too long for this series to actually get good.
You don't just start with Lee entering Enigma and discovering the first piece of the big mystery. The way it begins is, on his first day of his 10th grade, Li Ping was accused of pulling off the biggest prank in the school's history, resulting in a year's worth of detention. But with the help of a school bully who is actually a chill tech expert that loves kittens, Biff, Lee sneaks out of detention to figure out who is the actual culprit of the prank, all while avoiding his cyborg military-minded principal, Barrage. As cool as the show gets later on, the first batch of episodes were honestly tedious to watch, resulting in the biggest problem with the show leaving a bad first impression. The format of the storytelling gets repetitive, most of the characters are annoying and unpleasant to be around, and the big narrative is all about some dumb prank than an actual mystery, while not even bothering to explain the more supernatural elements like the robot janitors, the cyborg principal, and the school's mascot, the Tazzleworm. Sure, some could say that the latter is to foreshadow what's to come with their purpose and origins, but they mostly get treated as an afterthought while passing itself off as a show mostly about high school life.
Chill, Holger, you're disturbing the wildlife.
And because Ping's big goal is to not be labeled as the next Andy Larkin,
By the way, if you get that reference without looking it up, you can have a cookie.
it makes it really hard to be invested with what the show has to offer, because this is all about answering the question of who committed the prank. There have been some instances where I think about that question as Lee tries to figure it out, and all I can think of is, so what? Yes, eventually there is a point where the show finally does get interesting when it reveals that there is much more that's going on than the prank, and the characters get themselves in life-threatening situations, but the moment doesn't officially happen until you reach around the 20th episode. You have to sit through a whole season and a half of the same detention breakout stunt and high school shenanigans again and again and again just for the show to start to get interesting and worthwhile. I understand about being rewarded for having patience, but with that amount of episodes to go through, I don't think this show can offer anything that would be worth more than 7 hours worth of patience.
When I get upset, my anger seems to know no bounds. So if I were you, I'd find a way to fix this.
Of course, when the show does get good, that also means that it would be able to do a lot with the animation, especially later on when they would supply a whole lot of action scenes with the robots and chances to go and visually depict what they mean with the secrets that they actually have. Now, in the case right over here, this is one of those shows that I would say it actually looks really awesome when you do see pictures of it. Like, you would go and see the nice drawings, the great looking characters, the interesting backgrounds. It definitely has a lot of potential to do something great with the animation. But that is actually the catch though. When you see pictures of it, that's when it looks good. When you see it in motion though...
Okay, I'll just start with talking about the designs. In this series, the style they were going for is not necessarily realistic, but rather more geometric with a hint of abstract. And yes, I know, it's another one of those high school animated shows. But to its credit, it has a nice style that still gives the show its own identity. Not to mention how the bigger and crazier the mystery gets, the more interesting and creative the designs are to show how there is a lot more to this high school series with more threatening robots, weird locations, and all the different kinds of powers at the character's disposal. Also, there are times when some of the artists at Nelvana were able to show off their talent, and what they do can be very impressive. Occasionally, when the show needs a still image, it presents some really nice looking drawings that can put the characters in poses that go a bit beyond of what the animation could do. While it is nice to see some really good draftsmanship in display, there can be times when the use of it doesn't work well to its advantage. Probably the most common use of these drawings are to fill the backgrounds. Like, make it look like the school halls are not empty whenever Lee, Cam, and Holger are talking to each other. However, I get that their role is simply just that, to fill the backgrounds, but it doesn't change how weird they look by just standing there. It's almost as if the characters are acting around cardboard cutouts, which, considering how in-depth it goes into its own lore, I wouldn't be surprised if there was an explanation for it.
Just because you don't have detention today doesn't mean you can rough house with your friends.
But as great as these designs can be, the one thing that does hold them back when they are brought to life is because this animation, oh boy, it's quite something. At first, when I came in blind, I thought this was probably some early digital 2D animation when they were starting to experiment on fully using computers to animate with that style. But nope, I was way off. Again, this is a show that started in 2011, yet it found a way to simultaneously look stiff and rubbery at the same time, where the characters' movements look unnaturally flat when it seems like it wants to give the look some dimensions. And considering how this is supposed to be a show that gets increasingly action-packed, it's lucky that the concepts are good enough to get viewers invested, because there are times when the animation doesn't do it any favors. Sometimes, the bigger mystery than the mystery itself is how can they make running animations feel so awkward? Okay, to be fair, as the show progresses, the animation does get better a bit when it requires more meticulous fight scenes to occur, like whenever the assassin called the Serpent comes in. But still, maybe the animators had to work around a limited resource, but it's hard for me to say that the animation is one of the show's strengths.
However, as it is a show that is primarily set in high school, a major factor to determine if the viewer would actually be on board with this series is if the characters are likable enough in order to go and make school life feel tolerable or even, dare I say, fun. And in the case right over here, it's actually very interesting because out of all the aspect that Detentionaire would go and offer, it's the characters that actually feel the most like an actual high school. And I am honestly still debating if that would actually be a good thing.
Okay, what I mean is that in terms of the cast's likability, it's very similar to what you'd find in a real school where they can all be split into 3 categories. There are those that are pretty cool and worth hanging out with. There are those that are more of an afterthought but seem harmless. And
first, Tony's horrible abomination of a zit, like a volcano on her face. Grab an umbrella, people. Now Bad Boy Ping has holes in his unmentionables. Enjoying the breeze? Oh, and he's also in love with a nose picker.
There are those that make you want to grab the closest heavy object you could find and slam it in their face to make them shut up. As for the kind of people that can be found in this academy, they got about every usual archetype you'd expect to find. The jocks, the nerds, the popular divas, the different ethnicities, the outcasts, the rockers, the emos, the environmentalists, the cheerleaders. They're all here at Enigma High. As for the teachers, they don't get as much attention as the students or provide much to the story unless they have something to do with Lee, like his mom or Principal Barrage always thinking he's up to no good. But I can say that those usual archetypes are featured here too, including that one adult employee that can make people pray,
Lord, show me how to say no to this. I don't know how to say no to this.
But despite the wide variety of people in this show, the reason why it has a bad first impression is because most of the characters start off as annoying. And considering how long the show takes to actually get interesting, a lot of them can remain like that for a good while. There are a few that are enjoyable from the start, and thankfully, the protagonist Lee Ping is one of them with his Peter Parker-like charisma, along with Biff by breaking the mold of the bully stereotype by being a good tech helper, Barrage with his over-the-top military attitude, and Vice Principal Victoria for other reasons. But other than that, just about everyone starts off on a pretty low note, and only a fraction would be willing to climb up their long way of redeemability. The perfect examples of this are Lee's friends Camilio and Holger. In Cam's case, he first seems pretty cringy with his whole act of being a horny Cheech Marin, complete with a libido more outrageous than his accent. But after taking the time to know him and adjusting to his quirks, he actually becomes very likable. So much so that I'd even say that he ends up becoming one of the best characters of the show, and his flair can have a bit of charm.
Okay, Dudachinos, I'm totally going Lee Ping on this. I'm gonna infiltrate the outcasts. The whole whisker thing is my in. No one messes with this.
As for Holger,
have some of Mama's germ go bye-bye pie. Make you strong like ox. Handsome like ox too. It's made from beluga gills and chicken legs with a tad of wild nixelnort. So you no get snotty in the face mouth.
Yeah, it took a long time just to get used to his goofy European personality.
Not to be worrying, Holger now be having the superpowers and easily be defeating them. Hi-ya!
Okay, is he gonna keep talking like that? Because I'm gonna break his face.
By the way, just a quick side note that if there is one thing that I highly do praise the characters in this show for, is that they actually do provide some really good voice acting. Like, the voice actors here, they actually do a very good job, and I could definitely feel the energy that they had a great time when doing this show, especially when they would play their characters either to feel legitimately genuine or be very playful with their personalities. So I will give credit that the actors definitely did a great job on their part. However, there is one character specifically that I don't know if I should admire or be concerned with their performance, and that is regarding Principal Barrage. Mainly because of the way that he would constantly shout his lines in most of the episodes.
What in tarnation is going on in here? You look like the kind of kid who'd break that mirror and sell your bingo-loving grandma for a pack of second-hand tootie-patooties. Imagine that! While you're stuck here and the Battle of the Bands rages just over the dune. That was literally the dumbest thing I've ever heard! School uniform stay! Stop being such a Missy Mary, don't dance! Get up on stage, soldier!
So imagine every time you enter the recording room and y'all gotta play a character for this big show, y'all have to go and scream your lungs out every single time!
Oh my god, how the fridge does Sean Cullen do it? Seriously. Like, that was just for a joke, and already I feel like I need to give my throat a break.
But again, not everyone is lucky to have the chance to prove themselves of being worth the audience's time, and a key of that issue is from the show's theme of popularity. Throughout the whole series, especially at the start, most of the students have this obsession over their popularity status and how that can affect their days during their academic life, especially when Lee finds himself in the lead of that race thanks to his alleged ultimate prank. I'll just say now that I do get the point of what it's trying to do. The creators stated that one of their goals with Detentionaire is to provide commentary against social class established in schools, and that people from different cliques should mix and mingle. That's fine, and I do find that it is a good message to tell kids that not many are actually talking about. But the way the series executes that is more troublesome than not, especially when most of the personalities are just exaggerated versions of their archetype. So, as a result, most of the characters feel shallow, and the only thing they care about is their own selfish needs. Sure, there is that leverage where the best characters are the main ones, but it doesn't change how the bad ones can seriously damper the experience.
I don't know, this isn't prank class.
But you're Li Ping! You're the prank master! School blaster! Li Ping is the dude of disaster! Can I get a what? Can I get a what?
I know that I have really been digging into this mixed bag by simultaneously pulling out a lot of good things and bad things about the show. And believe me, there really is a lot with this. However, some could argue that in terms of the bad stuff, a lot of the problems can actually be fixed if the show does have a great finale, like a proper conclusion that could go and help justify many of the quirks and the flaws that it may have. And when it comes to a show like Detentionaire, where it would get progressively better after every episode, and it would grow to become increasingly epic, then that could probably lead to an intense and incredible climax that would ultimately lead to an amazing finale, right? Well, I'm gonna have to go and spoil this, so feel free to skip this part if you want to go and avoid the spoilers, but let me tell you how this show ends.
The series concludes by finally explaining what the mystery of the pyramid underneath the school is all about. How there was a civilization of lizard people that will one day return to Earth after nearly going extinct during the Ice Age. But that's not all. Lee, Biff, and Holger, along with fellow classmates Jenny and Tina, rescue Lee's mom who was encased in the lost island of Coral Grove so that the facility could produce clones of her. And then, before a major battle with one of the secret organization's heads, Tina confesses her love to Lee and they finally kiss for the first time. And then, at school, Cam, his girlfriend Brandy, and Barrage all go against the robots and the clones of one of the other organization heads to free the students from rebuilding the broken pyramid. And then, when they thought they got things resolved, another organization head who was presumed dead comes back with an army of the lizard people to take down humanity.
But wait! That's it.
Unfortunately, despite the hefty amount of episodes it already has, this is one of those shows that ended prematurely and did not receive a proper conclusion. The team probably had an idea for another season or two where it ends with Lee and the gang literally saving humanity from a legion of lizard people, but all we end up with is an unresolved cliffhanger and unanswered questions after 4 whole seasons and a total of 53 episodes. And after going through all that, I think the best way to describe Detentionaire is a lot like Lee's life. It's just very complicated. For everything awesome and enjoyable this series provides, there is also a problem that hinders it and makes it more questionable if the whole experience was worth it. It has good concepts and ideas for this major mystery, but doesn't have a good story that narratively explains it in a way that is appealing from start to finish. It's got good designs, but not good animation to bring them to life. It does have good voice acting, but not good characters where there are more that are frustrating than those that are endearing. And it does have a good pace and a strong amount of action to help unravel its mystery, but it takes way too long to get used to its flaws, and it takes even longer for anything to actually get interesting that's worth grabbing your attention. To be honest, I'm still debating whether this is a show I'd recommend to watch. Technically, you can go check out the whole series for free on YouTube on the channel Retro Rerun, but you might need a whole lot of patience, like more than usual, if you want to see this at its best. Sure, I could say that you could just skip to the 20th episode and just go from there, but then you'd be missing a good amount of context to even know half of what is happening. Considering the equal amount of good and bad from this, I think I'll make my rating reflect exactly that and give this a 5 out of 10. Not a passing grade, but at least we could say it tried.
This is not to say that I hate it, but this has got to be the biggest mixed bag that I've ever seen. Maybe it is because this is a series and it does have a good amount of episodes instead of the usual 90-minute movies that I am used to reviewing. But still though, as much as I want to look back and remember all the good times that I've had with it and a lot of the good things that the show has done, there is also going to be that other side of the series that are frustrating to experience, that a lot of the problems that it may have that keeps me away from fully enjoying Detentionaire. And unfortunately, it's going to be that part that honestly might most likely keep me away from wanting to revisit and go back to rewatch the whole series. In a way, I guess the best way to go and summarize my experience with Detentionaire is kind of like my feelings with my experience with high school. Now, I'll definitely have fond memories of it, of course, and I would lie if I said that I never had a good time. But would I want to go and do that whole experience again? Oh, hell no. I did my job and I fully graduated. I am ready to move on. And I will certainly not want to go back there and revisit to go and see those jerks again. See you later, dudes.
I don't know what we just found, but I never want to see that again.